Hello and welcome back to artofdino.com, where I have found a very cool article from the Democratic Press, March 15th, 1893, called "A Cave of Human Bones, the Curious Natural Sarcophagus Found in California." And again, it's in the Columbia-Tuolumne County area with Yosemite and all that other good stuff, because just from anyone that's ever been to Yosemite and seen those massive mountains and stuff, you know that was a special and sacred ancient place, and underneath it has got to be packed. When everything was underground and the civilization was above and under, way beyond us and the gold rush, and we know something is down there, and they always have, and there's been mines all over the area and everything. So I found this really cool article that I want to read because I haven't found one like it before, and it's very interesting the way they describe it, and it makes me think a lot about the mining back in the day, the gold rush, all of that stuff. It sheds some very cool light on it, and again, on a mysterious race of beings that was found underneath all of this, in the mines, all of these things. And I would like to believe that a lot of these mines were definitely, again, I've heard a lot of people have said it in the comments, and I agree, is that they were kind of tapping in and digging out stuff for a very long time. And those mines were not just there for silver and things like that. They were there for a lot more, and to collect information and to hide it from everyone else. And that's probably why miners had such short lives and were so had such hardship, is because they probably didn't, the people in the power with all the money and control probably didn't want them to let anything out. So again, who knows, but take a listen to this read because it is awesome. A Cave of Human Bones. Joseph Chettle, who has arrived here from Columbia-Tuolumne County, reports the finding of a curious cave full of human bones about 2.5 miles from that place. The cave is in solid marble and is 286 feet in extent, in offshoots apparently bottomless, and with the roof in places 50 feet high. The gleaming of the vari-colored marble from the lights of the candles in the caves, combined with the ghastly bones, gives one a queer feeling, something like Mr. Chettle says, walking among tombs, only worse. Little does he know they most likely are. He went down in the cave and looked at it over very carefully. He brought a skull and a lot of other bones with him to the city, says the San Francisco Chronicle. Everything points to the bones being the remains of a race that flourished in old Tuolumne eons ago. They are larger than the average of human bones, and the race to whom they belonged was evidently very powerful. There is about a ton of them altogether, he says. I concluded to go down into it, said he. The entrance was so narrow that a man could scarcely squeeze himself in. It pitched down abruptly, and I had hard work to keep on my feet, as had the one man who accompanied me. At 30 feet it was pitch dark, and we could see nothing except by the aid of our dim lights. There were no weapons either, and this is one of the strangest things of the place. In all Indian burial places, hitherto, so far as known, weapons of some sort and oftentimes some kinds of pottery have been found. There was nothing of this sort there. Only the clean bones were to be seen. How long they had lain there no one can tell, but as the cave was dry as any carefully prepared sarcophagus, they may have been there for many centuries. I have no doubt that they have, nor have any of the people who saw them. In all, I judge there was over a ton of the bones, indicating that many score of persons have been interred there. In a niche, I found part of a skull and other bones. A queer odor pervaded the place. Above and all around us gleamed the white marble. A little farther on was marble flecked with blue and dark colors, making a scene, while awful yet beautiful. We clambered down the steep floor of the marble chamber. In some places it widened out into broad hallways and corridors with floors many feet wide. The strange odor grew stronger as we advanced. It did not exactly offend, but it gave a queer, uncanny effect and made one advance, if not reverentially, at last with a feeling that there was no knowing what might be revealed next. We continued, and a little ahead of us, and to one side we came to an oblong chamber, 75 to 80 feet in extent. Here a sight met our view that I shall never forget. A myriad of grisly skeletons loomed up to our view. The skulls were extremely extremely ghastly and had been tossed about and changed somewhat from their original position by the miners or the quarrymen who had preceded me, for the cave is on the 140-acre tract owned by the Columbia Marble Company. Skulls, arm bones, thigh bones, and all other kinds of human bones lay about there. There were no other relics. Whatever there had originally been in the way of clothing had rotted entirely away. The cave is attracting a good deal of attention about Columbia. The surroundings are very rugged and wild. I know of scarcely any other region in California so picturesque. The miner who first got down into the narrow opening leading into the cave did so by the aid of a rope, which he fastened behind him. He was not a little astonished, you may believe, when he came upon the ghastly bones, and when he got to the surface, as he speedily did, the cold sweat stood out upon him in a way that it never did before. Nobody believed him when he first told this story, but he speedily convinced them by daring them to follow him, which some of them at length did. It is a sight I shall never forget, he said. Mr. Chettle is keeping the bones which he brought back as mementos of his adventurous trip. So immediately, you have to ask, what happened to this place after this story? Was there any other thing that led from this? Is there any other stories? I'll have to keep digging. But, what happened to all these bones? If you find a shaft of thousands of bones, who gets to call next? Is it the Smithsonian and then everything gets eviscerated from then? Or is it something else? And again, it makes me wonder as well, since there are all these mining companies, they must have had scouts at some point in time before the gold rush that led everyone to believe that the gold rush was happening and led everyone to kind of advertise that there was something to go here. So I wonder if there was a team in the 1700s or whatnot that was already exploring these things silently and quietly and was, the elite, the controllers, were just divvying up the mining zones and the profitable places and businesses to the people that they knew and that were connected, which is usually the case in big business and all these companies that are in countries that are more corporations than anything. And so now I want to show some real pictures that I've gathered from this Columbia area. And it was a quarry. It was all of this stuff. And again, it's the same spot as Yosemite. So I don't know. Whenever I remember going to Yosemite when I was very young and thinking, this is a strange place. Half Dome and all these things, were they something else? Were they a structure or a civilization at point? That whole valley is absolutely beautiful. And they were using water cannons like this to just tear away stuff. And how rapidly were they doing it? How many things were they finding? And I do agree that water is a good way to kind of, you may destroy some things, but you're going to also, clean things out. And it's a good way to go through archaeology without using a fine-tooth comb. And I wonder if that's what was happening back in the day, if when they were doing these kind of excavations and finding these things for the Smithsonian and the private collectors to inevitably hide and erase from history, if they were doing it with things like that, with water jets, with steam power, which is so much more efficient than the toothbrushes and little picks that they use nowadays. And so I'm wondering now if that is just kind of a way of keeping a couple arms tied behind the back of future archaeologists. If they were doing this rapid evacuation before, this area looks like it would have, all the dust would have eroded with water, and then you'd leave behind just those rocks. And I'm not sure if that's what they did, but I could see that happening. And then as you go down, you uncover the civilization. Because if there was a mud flood, and there was all this stuff, there are 9 feet of dirt that covers the cemeteries and the golf courses from what the layer of civilization that lies underneath it, then again, water would be the perfect way to get rid of it and not using a toothbrush and the ridiculous methods that modern archaeologists use, which are just way too slow, way too useless, and they detract people from wanting to be in that field because it's just so unbearably slow. And the amount of success that you have is very nil because, I'd rather have something get a little thrashed around than be perfectly meticulous and take another 50 years. I'd rather know about it now and have it be a little bit broken than never knowing that it exists at all, whatever relic it is. It's worth it to go rapid fire, I personally think, because otherwise they're just going to stay there forever and we don't know about them. So it's more important that we dig and we find these things. And again, all these these mine shafts, very elaborate. Look at all these things, these systems. They were doing more than just looking for gold and silver here. They were clearly doing something else. And I think the people in control clearly knew of this civilization that they were finding and that they were digging up. And then they put them in the newspaper in articles like this, and people flock to the place. And I'm sure like it happened all over. And then once people flock to it, the news stories stop and the secretive covertness begins. And history learns nothing, and the people around it learn nothing, and the people that inevitably witness all this stuff pass away, the stories die, and we get nothing. And now we're left here a couple hundred years later with very little clues, except a guttural feeling that we know we are missing something, and we know that beneath us is buried an untold amount of massive master civilizations that we must find out about. That's all I know. But either way, I hope you enjoyed this story. I hope you got some out of it. And again, if you find any other links connecting to this or anything further in the future, put it down below. We'd love to see it. And thanks again for checking it out, artofdino.com. Bless you all.